A transition is when we go smoothly between one clip and the following one. Although not very commonly used in most video and film work, it is important to know how to add and modify these transitions. In many cases, they can emphasize your message and help you deliver the best. Let's start by opening the Transitions project file in the Chapter 6 folder. We are going to be applying some transitions in between some clips, so I'm going to add them to the timeline. I'm just going to go ahead and drag all of them. And now I'll do a zoom to fit. There you go. So a transition is when you transition between one clip and the next, right? So how I define a transition is like this. A transition is when two clips are playing at the same time and then somehow one goes to the other one. So that somehow can be an explosion, a dissolve, a wipe, however you want it, but the key words are when two clips are playing at the same time. Let me go ahead and zoom in. As you can see, there are gray wedge things here at the end and at the beginning of these adjacent clips. What that means is that I don't have any more handles or available frames to let me do a transition. So this clip actually ends where it ends in the timeline. I don't have any more frames. And the next clip actually starts where it starts in the timeline. I don't have any other extra frames for this. So under my definition, I won't be able to add any transitions to this because there's no way that these two clips can play at the same time. Well, how Premiere handles that is like this. First, let's learn where the transitions are. On this panel set, you're going to see an Effects tab. If you click on it, you will see that there is a folder here called Video Transitions. If you expand it, you're going to see that there's many other subfolders inside of this one. That's because Premiere divides the transitions that we have into different categories. I'm going to go ahead to the first folder and I'm just going to add a cube spin in between these two clips. To add the transition, all I have to do is click on it and drag it and place it in between the two clips. When I release this, Premiere is going to give me a message. Basically, it's going to say, hey, you don't have enough frames to make the transition happen. So we are going to freeze frame some of these so that you can still have the transition. In other words, the previous clip is going to freeze between the edit point and the end of the transition, and the clip that follows is going to freeze between the beginning of the transition and the edit point. That is what these diagonal lines indicate. If we use the Ripple Edit tool, you're going to see how these diagonal lines are going to disappear because now we can have enough frames to let the transition happen without having to freeze frame anything. We can also replace any transition that we have in the timeline by just clicking and dragging the new transition on top of the one that we want to replace. There you go. It says flip over now. I'm going to go ahead and delete this transition and I'll expand this dissolve. I'm going to add this additive dissolve in between these two clips. Now, I can choose where the transition can end and or begin. I can tell it to end at the edit point or start at the edit point or be right in the middle. But notice that it doesn't let me do it in between these two. The reason why it doesn't let me do it in between these two clips is because I have no handles. So I don't have extra frames that will allow me to have this transition. So I'll have repeated frames. Let me go ahead and delete that. I'm going to try the same transition, but in between these two clips. These are the ones that we rippled edit before, so we do have extra frames or extra handles. Notice that the mouse cursor looks like a little flag or a little rectangle with a line right in the middle. What that means is that my transition is going to be placed right in the middle of the edit point. But if I move it a little bit to the right, notice that it looks like a little flag facing to the right. This means that my transition is going to start at the edit point. And if I move it to the left, it means the opposite. In other words, this transition is going to end at the edit point. Just keep in mind that the only reason why I can do this in between these two clips is because I have enough frames that act as handles so the transition is possible.